Bam! What's up, nerds? It's your boy, the OGGM, coming to you live, large, and mostly awake here in the beautiful, kind of beautiful beach town that I live in. I leave it to you to decide which one it is. It's Friday, which means it's time to once again take a look at all the various leftovers, the victims of the OGL war from the beginning of this year, starting off with Paizo, the father and mother of the ORC, the ones that, kind of started this whole thing all those years ago with 4th edition and Pathfinder and the births of the OGL, and were the very first to step up and say, okay, this is what we're going to do because of what Wizards of the Coast is doing with the OGL, even though most people were like, 2 weeks too late, and it took a really long time. But hey, we have the orc now, and it's probably the best we're going to get until somebody makes something better, looking at you, 7CD20, and Matt Coville, and all the other people who promised they would make shit. Let's see what's new from Paizo and the Paizo community update. Remember Paizo's whole big union thing? They have a union, right? Now the union and the current union president have decided to come to some sort of agreement between the company and the employees regarding union negotiations, tabletop role-playing unions. I don't know. It doesn't really give us much information. Of course, the biggest story out of the OGL collapse is the orc. The orc did not take, Paizo did not take the orc lightly, and they felt they couldn't work under the current license, so they began making the orc. They've streamlined the operations throughout the company, merging teams, i.e. letting people go. They've got new storms and forms coming out. They're working on Pathfinder fiction and licensing, blah, 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 blah. None of this really has anything to do with what's going on with the actual Paizo community or the orc or future plans for Paizo projects. This is pretty much just telling us, hey, this is what's coming out of the post-orc, the final negotiations regarding the licensing and the union, and we're going to do stuff with the license in the future, thanks because the orc will let us do stuff. Now, mind you, the last time we saw the orc, there was two blatant mistakes that I pointed out. Hopefully, they have been caught and fixed, and it is now safely in the hands of the Library of Congress. Of course, mistake number one was in the example orc label when it referenced a game, which meant that if you use the orc label that they gave you, you would be basically making your game a subsidiary of the game that was referenced in the orc label. Now, hopefully that example company that is in has been removed, and it is now just a blank spot where you can list your company and product's name, because otherwise, if you use the orc label on your product, you're basically saying my product is a subsidiary of this made-up product that's used as an example. So hopefully Paizo got rid of that. The other thing was, of course, in regards to the orc and licensed properties like Fast and the Furious or Guardians of the Galaxy or Oppenheimer. And it pretty much said, yeah, you can use those and you won't get in trouble if you make them under the orc. And as we know, that is completely untrue, especially with the current relations between the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Actors Guild and their various unions and members. No, you cannot use an IP simply willy-nilly with no repercussions. You need to get permission from the holder of the IP before you make a game based upon the IP, and then you need to make sure whatever contract you and the holder of the IP make is ironclad. Ironclad. So 20 years from now, somebody can't go, oh no, that was my idea. I made up that idea 20 years ago. I'm just finally getting around to noticing an entire science fiction fantasy franchise was made upon the idea that I submitted 20 years ago. So yeah, I'm suing you 20 years later because I just now noticed, which is kind of sort of, how the whole OGL thing started. Oh, we just now noticed after almost 30 years, people are using our content? What? Wizards of the Coast. All right. The other big one, of course, is they have released the alpha test. I saw this last night. Let's see if I can find it again. What are they calling this thing? The alpha release, the alpha test, the alpha squadron. Where'd it go? Anyways, Tales from the Valiant. Had it last night. Has released their alpha thing. We talked about this last week. I had the link. I don't know where it went. Machines. That they were going to release the alpha test. It's $10. Where is it? I assume it's in the store. And it is the first 5 levels of all the classes. So if you want to pick this up, you can get to it through here. Somewhere. I lost the link, but it's on there. So what is the difference between a quick start guide, an alpha test, and the final product? Well, based upon what little information I have, it is more information than a quick start guide, but not as much information as a full product. So, and it's still technically being playtesting because at the end of the alpha test, it says, want to playtest. So, and they've only done 4 playtest rounds so far. Now, I think we can just assume they've got monsters covered, because if there's one thing Kobold has done, it's monsters, right? So I think they're covered on monsters. So basically, most of the attention will be focusing on DMs, got build type stuff, and whatever's left of the player's handbook that they haven't done yet. Now, we can probably also ignore boring stuff like weapons and armor and encumbrance. I'm pretty sure, that they've got that covered. Magic, they have to maybe rename a few spells and tweak it to fit whatever their new wizard's build is using. But again, Magic's Fancy and Magic has been done, so they probably don't have to do that much work left on the spell part. They just have to make sure that it looks different enough from 5e that Wizards doesn't get too upset. But other than that, it's going to be cut and paste. BIGBY's Grasping Hand, you can just change the name. Fireball, you can just call Ball of Fire. But, everything else has pretty much been done to death. We kind of know, what 5e Magic can and cannot do. So that just pretty much leaves working out all the characters, working out all the talents, working out all the stuff to make sure they're not too broken, and that what works on paper actually works. So, yeah. Alpha test is somehow better than a play test, but is not the finished product. If I was going to compare it to something that I have familiarity with, I'd probably compare it with the D&D Next and 5th edition. D&D Next, the last final product of D&D Next that we got during the 5e playtest, because remember, I playtested 5e. Suck it for all you people who are saying, oh, you 5e, blah, blah, blah. And the final 5e product that we got a few months later looked completely different, because we're still in the process of interpreting the playtest responses. And between D&D Next Final and D&D 5e First, there are some major differences. I still have the playtest copy of D&D Next Final, and I still have the 2014 PHB 5e. And yeah, I'm like, these are, oh, wow, these are different. I don't know why you guys didn't stick with D&D Next. This is better. So I have a feeling that's what the alpha test is. It's a complete game, or we could compare it to the play test of the Marvel Multiverse that were released on Amazon a year ago. It was a play test, but it was a complete game, but they were still play testing it. And like a year later, they're now releasing the finished product, which looks nothing like the original playtest. So I have a feeling whatever the alpha looks like and what the final looks like, probably going to, again, be completely different, because they're still playtesting it. So pick it up for $9, or just keep getting the playtest for free and then see where you stand. What else is going on in the amazing world of the ORC? No news from Daggerheart. Critical Role, of course, engaged in the Ashley Johnson, Brian Foster nonsense. All our support to both sides of that. Where do they stand in regards to the the Screen Actors Guild strike, especially with the October thing coming up, especially with they're still technically working, but they're all still members of SAG, and they still people are like, well, they don't have to do anything. They have their own company. It's like, yeah, but they still work for the industry, guys. They still do voiceover for video games. They still appear. They're still actors. First and foremost, you guys, they had careers before Critical Role, and they will have careers after Critical Role. And although Critical Role is a amazingly profitable side business, and a lot of them could consider, hey, I don't have to do voiceovers anymore, they're still doing it. I mean, Mercer was the voice on the latest Zelda game. That's how they got the rights to be able to do the Zelda Critical Role run. So they are in a very weird spot. But other than that, Illuminated Worlds sort of has already petered off. Maybe we'll get some new Illuminated Worlds excitement next month with Gen Con. Daggerheart, still a mystery. But hopefully we'll have some news next month with Gen Con or something coming out of SDCC. What's going on with C7D7 from Catalyst? Nothing. No new news. What's going on from Matt Colville? There's a name we haven't heard from a while, but I've heard that name come up a lot lately. And remember, he said he was going to do a rule set. And he didn't. What about Monty Cook? Remember Monty Cook, our old friend Monty Cook? We have, we know we think about Monty Cook. Follow through with one thing, Monty Cook. Please just follow through with one thing, okay? So Monty Cook is releasing a brand new thing called The Weird. And we're going to talk about that in a little separate thingy because it's basically a ripoff of stuff that's already been done by other people. So that just leaves what's going on with Green Ronin. Remember, Green Ronin announced that they're making a new mysterious game that we know nothing about. Is this their entry into the ORC OGL battle? No, because they're saying it has nothing to do with D20. But they did just finally release Fantasy Age 2nd Edition Core Rulebook, which is not part of the thing, except it is part of the thing, because it does use a D20 system, but it uses their own variation of the D20 system, but still probably protected under the ORC. Doesn't say. Again, of course, they said Fantasy Age 2nd Edition was going to be all set around Freeport. Fantasy Age 2nd Edition is out. No connection to Freeport whatsoever. It's at least another year, if not longer, before we see anything done with one of my favorite settings. Actually, the only thing that they've ever really done over at Green Ronin that I absolutely 100% love is Freeport. Freeport is going to be the main setting for Fantasy Age 2nd Edition. We're really going to get into the world of Freeport. Here's the setting for Fantasy Age 2nd Edition, Baywater. So Baywater is just a burnt out, run-down, cheap knockoff of Freeport. But in my last communication with Green Ronin, it was, oh, no, they're separate. We're still working on new Freeport based upon Age. It'll be another year or two, if not longer. But yeah, it's definitely, no, it's not out there. Just which means we have to end where we begin. The ones who started it all. Wizards on the coast. What's new with 1D&D/2024 D&D since the last time we checked, other than them changing release dates? Not much. Except finally we have an explanation to my question as to why the character on the cover is not BIGBY. And apparently, based upon a joke meme that apparently dates back to me, so I guess Wizards of the Coast at least listens to me, and my multiple comments about it not being BIGBY. Somebody made a joke about, a giant stepped on BIGBY while he was researching it, and he got reincarnated as a gnome. Well, now that's apparently what the creators are running with. So thanks to me, I will take 100% credit for that, even if it's not my responsibility, because I was the first one to go, that's not BIGBY. As of now, the lore is they were out doing the research. BIGBY got stepped on by a giant. Mordekainen and the other guys they were with didn't have access to a priest. But they did have access to reincarnate, so they cast reincarnate and brought him back as a gnome. Really, it's so they don't have to give the guy who actually created BIGBY any credit. They can say, oh, BIGBY's a gnome, Therefore, he's our take on BIGBY. We don't have to give the guy who actually created the character, who's still alive, any actual credit, because, you know, Wizards of the Coast totally, you know, shepherding the legacy of D&D. Yeah. So basically, now, as for the obvious Scanlan connection, hold on a sec. That's Scanlan. Somebody wants $399 for a copy of this. I don't think you're gonna get it, guy. But A for effort. That is Scanlan. Okay, the hair, the chest open. You know, it's that they couldn't give him a flying broom because it'd be too close to what Scanlan has, so they gave him a flying carpet. Even though BIGBY doesn't have a flying carpet, he has a broom of flying. The purple energy. Whatever, yeah, they're trained basically because most people now associate BIGBY with Scanlan from season 1 of Critical Role, you know, Vox Machina, and of course now with the animated cartoon going into 3rd season, and all the times he goes Scanlan's hand. Now pretty much anybody who is not, you know, actually knowledgeable about the game makes the instant connection. Scanlan, BIGBY, Scanlan, purple magic. BIGBY is a gnome. Scanlan is a gnome. If we make this, you know, BIGBY a gnome, it'll be more connectable to people will look at this and go, hey, that's that gnome from that thing. So yeah, I should buy this because it's got Scanlan in it. So apparently, you know, BIGBY learned everything he knows from Scanlan as opposed to the other way around. So that is why BIGBY is a gnome. And they stole that idea from me. I take 100% credit for it. It was my idea, even if nobody agrees with me. But as for actual knowledge regarding what's going on with the actual game in 2024, nothing, still nothing. So, in closing, the only company that has actually done anything in the last week, Tales from the Valiant, Kobold Press, releasing the alpha play for $10 online PDF. You can get this wonderful thing that'll probably be nothing like the final product when it comes out. Paizo is basically let us know, yeah, we're doing stuff. 7CD20, no new news. Daggerheart, no new news. Whatever it is Matt Colville was going to do, no new news. Monty Cook released something that has absolutely nothing to do with the OGL because he's Monty Cook. Green Ronin said they were going to release a brand new game that they've been working on in secret, but instead released Fantasy Age 2nd Edition, which has no connection to Freeport yet. All the other people who said they were going to do something haven't. Still, really, the only winner of the OGL war is Shadow Dark. And me, because I said it was not BIGBY, and they said, oh yeah, screw you, OGGM, it is BIGBY. They reincarnated him because a bunch of 20th level wizards weren't smart enough to bring a potion of healing with them, or a scroll, or cast wish, or do any of the things Mordecai could have done. But it would have been funnier to reincarnate him as a gnome. What would have really been funnier was to reincarnate him as a giant, since a giant who killed him. But no, you stole my idea as an explanation for why he is now a Scanlan ripoff. And I'm going to keep saying that until it becomes true. Till next time, I'm the OGGM. If you appreciate this weekly catch-up, let me know. If you never want to explore the world of the OGL nonsense again, let me know. Of course, it is the #1 story affecting the entire community, so I will continue to talk about it, but it's good to know if you don't want to hear it. Remember, I talk about other things besides just Wizards of the Coast and the OGL. Not often, but I do. I'll see you later. Until next time, remember to stay warm, stay dry, stay awesome, stay healthy, stay happy, and most of all, stay off my land. You damn kids.